Whatever exists in this universe is embraced in the divine, is enfolded in the divine. Delight in everything and in everyone without possessiveness. In other words, we should not be envious of others' flourishing, others' prosperity. We should also delight. It gives us a way of being in relation to the natural world, but also a way of being in relation with each other, that we should delight in each other's flourishing.
Can we still start with a little bit of human interaction?
Yes.
Before we dive into these big questions.
Yes.
Your own personal background. Where did you grow up? How did your vision of life get shaped?
I was born in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes. My great-grandfather migrated there in the mid-19th century. This is right after the abolition of the slave trade, and then the British economy in those islands, which was centered on sugarcane cultivation on the plantations. The economies were in crisis, so they were looking for alternative labor, because the Africans naturally left the plantations. And they found such a good labor supply in India, in the poverty of Indian rural areas. So they were recruiting Indians to work on sugar plantations in the Caribbean, in South Africa, in Mauritius, in Fiji. And my great-grandfather, 19-year-old young man with very little economic prospects in India at that time, got on a ship, made a long journey from Kolkata to Trinidad and Tobago, and that's where I was born. But my grandfathers on both sides of my family were also farmers, but they were Hindu priests. Okay. And they served the community as ritual specialists. So I grew up in a very orthodox Hindu home, where I developed a very deep spiritual interest in the Hindu tradition. So at the first opportunity, which is right after at the end of my undergraduate studies, I went to India at 21 years old, and I joined a Hindu monastery and studied with very traditional teachers for 3 years. Learned Sanskrit, read sacred texts, and immersed myself in spiritual disciplines and practices. I was on a path to Hindu monasticism, but I was very young. By that time I was 24 years old after 3 years of monastic studies and training. And I felt that I didn't know the larger world of religious study and academic inquiry to make such a profound commitment, because I thought at that time that once I took monastic vows, I would not be able to continue studying religion at an academic, scholarly level. So at that time, I made a decision to go back to graduate school. And so I went to the United Kingdom and I pursued my graduate studies, at the end of which, basically, I chose the life of a scholar and came to the United States to teach. And I'm very happy for the choices that I made, because these two streams continue to flow within me, sometimes in great tension. The stream of the practitioner, the stream of my Hindu commitment, and all of the questions and inquiries that also have their roots in academic inquiry and academic study. Yes, they live in tension, they live in harmony also, but I think I have a much richer life for the fact that I made those choices. I also think, Matt, that choosing the life of a scholar has given me a great deal of freedom to question, to interrogate interpretations, to interrogate structures without fear of the kinds of consequences that might follow if I were in a much more traditional role in my tradition.
So you can sort of take some intellectual risks to explore and ask some questions that if you were responsible for a community, if that exploration was happening in a context
that is
of a
absolutely,
community,
yes.
You'd be taking risks with other people's
Absolutely,
lives.
absolutely correct. So I have to walk, sometimes it's like a razor's edge that I have to walk. Because I do feel a sense of responsibility for my communities, but at the same time, I have to continue asking those kinds of questions that I think are important. So I am a sort of a critical lover of my tradition. There are many who are much more on the critical side, and there are those who are on the side of the lover. But to negotiate that journey that brings both the critical skills as well as the commitment. It's challenging, but at the same time, one has to be faithful to one's own self on this journey.